Fauci, did you delete any emails or records related to the Wuhan lab or the origins of the virus?
I don't have any idea what he's talking about. There is no back channel.
You did not suppress the lab leak theory, yet in the past you have said, quote,
the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory.
Fauci, how much have you earned from royalties from pharmaceutical companies since the pandemic began in 2021? It says NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers. You're saying that you did not receive any of the $710 million.
On COVID, I received, I've developed a monoclonal antibody about 25 years ago that's used as a diagnostic that has nothing to
think that if these experiments are made using American tax dollars, that any of those royalties, this nearly billions of dollars, should be going back to the American taxpayer.
What's up, Patriots? Welcome back to the channel where we stand up for truth, transparency, and the American taxpayer. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, and let's dive right into today's absolutely jaw-dropping testimony from Capitol Hill. Dr. Fauci, yes, that Fauci, was called before Congress and grilled by Representative Malliotakis from New York, someone who's actually asking the tough questions for once. Let's get right to the heart of it.
5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think many of us in the committee are really disturbed by revelations to this committee that there were officials at NIH that deleted government records, they deleted they used personal emails to communicate and circumvent freedom of information laws. So I just had a couple questions about that. Dr. Fauci, did you delete any emails or records related to the Wuhan lab or the origins of the virus?
No, I did not.
Okay. Dr. Morens said in a May 2021 email, he indicated that he was connecting people to you in a, quote, secret back channel. Do you know what he was referring to?
I don't have any idea what he's talking about. There is no back channel at NIAID.
Okay, there is, he also said in another email that there is no worry about Freedom of Information Act. I can send stuff to Tony on his private email. Did you communicate with anyone relating to anything regarding NIH or with Dr. Morens on a private email?
I do not do government business on my private email.
Okay, so have you communicated with Dr. Morens via private email, even if it was not necessarily your definition of government business?
It might have been because, as I mentioned in my opening statement, one of his functions is to write chapters, medical scientific chapters with me, so it is conceivable that I communicated with him on my private email when we were writing a chapter, and that was not official.
What about Peter Daszak?
No.
Okay. I just want to clarify for the record, because today you testified that you did not suppress the lab leak theory, yet in the past you have said, quote, it is a distortion of reality, unquote. You've said, quote, I've heard these conspiracy theories, and like all conspiracy theories, they're just conspiracy theories. That's what you told the American people. And so would you like to clarify what science were you following then versus now?
No, I've also been very, very clear and said multiple times that I don't think the concept of there being a lab leak is inherently a conspiracy theory. What is conspiracy is the kind of distortions of that particular subject, like it was a lab leak and I was parachuted into the CIA like Jason Bourne and told the CIA that they should really not be talking about a lab leak.
Thank you.
That's the conspiracy.
Appreciate that. Dr. Fauci, how much have you earned from royalties from pharmaceutical companies since the pandemic began in 2021?
Zero.
It says NIH scientists made $710 million in royalties from drug makers. You're saying that you did not receive any of the $710 million.
On COVID, I received, I think, $122 for a monoclonal antibody that I made 27 years ago.
Okay, so just in general, though, how much have you received, not related to COVID, just in general, how much have you received in royalties between 2021 and 2023?
I think none.
Okay, so somebody received the $710 million.
Somebody did, but not me.
You didn't receive any royalties. Okay.
I mean, I see no royalties associated with COVID. I mentioned.
I said.
No, I want.
No, I just said.
I'm on the record, and I want to make sure that this is clear. that I've developed a monoclonal antibody about 25 years ago that's used as a diagnostic that has nothing to do with COVID, and I receive an average of about $120 a year from that patent.
Okay, but the bottom line here is that scientists at NIH did receive $710 million in royalties, and I guess my question is, don't you think that if these experiments are made using American tax dollars, that any of those royalties, this nearly billions of dollars, should be going back to the American taxpayer, not in the pockets of the scientists? Do you believe that's a law that we should consider changing?
If you want to change the patent laws and the Bayh-Dole Act, then go ahead.
Okay.
But that's not for me to
Well,
say.
I'm asking your opinion. Okay. Well, anyway, moving on, I just want to say that, we know billions of dollars have been funding these animal experiments, both here domestically and in foreign land. I'm very troubled by the cruel, horrific animal research that has been done on U.S. land and in foreign laboratories. Taxpayers are footing the bill for billions of dollars. These beagle puppies that have their throats slit, they're being injected with ticks, they are murdered after just a few months, piglets, rabbits, you name it. FDA is saying we no longer need to be testing human medications on animals, that there's other ways to achieve this. Can you comment on that, if it's time for the United States of America to be moving on from these cruel animal and horrific costly tests?
I'd be happy to comment, but I'm puzzled as to what that has to do with the origins of COVID.
Well, I have a question about it,
Okay,
and you're
I'd be
before
happy
this
to
committee,
answer
and
it.
it has to do in general with the amount of waste of tax dollars that NIH is using.
Well, the animal experiments that are conducted by and funded by NIH go through strict regulations of the proper use of animals in research. So I'm not, Congressman, with all due respect, I'm not trying to be confrontative. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but the experiments that the NIH funded go through strict regulatory processes of the treatment of animals, the humane treatment of animals.
Well, they're not very humane, and I will say, as the former director, you signed off on these experiments, and so my time has expired, and we will.
Well, I signed off on them because they were approved by a peer review.
Malliotakis goes in hard, asking about allegations that NIH officials were deleting government records and using private emails to dodge Freedom of Information Act laws. That's not just shady, it's illegal. The American people deserve transparency, especially after the last few years of gaslighting, lockdowns, and mandates. Fauci flat out denies deleting any emails or records about the Wuhan lab or virus origins. But here's the thing. Trust is earned, not given. When there are whistleblowers and emails coming out left and right, saying there were secret back channels and private communications, how are we supposed to believe the same people who flip-flopped a dozen times on masks, vaccines, origins, and everything in between? And then we hear about Dr. Morens, Fauci's own colleague, talking about secret back channels and not worrying about FOIA because he can just send stuff to Tony, Fauci, on his private email. Seriously? That's Banana Republic stuff, folks. If you or I did that in the private sector, we'd be fired or in jail. Now let's talk about the lab leak theory. Remember when bringing up the possibility that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan got you called a conspiracy theorist, a nut job, what got you banned on social media? Fauci himself went on TV, calling it a distortion of reality and dismissing anyone who dared ask questions. Today, under oath, he's suddenly saying, "Oh, I never said a lab leak was a conspiracy theory, just that the wild stories about the CIA and cover-ups were conspiratorial." Give me a break. The American people aren't stupid. We remember how anyone questioning the official narrative was shouted down, censored, and ridiculed. Now, when under oath, the story shifts. That's not science, that's politics. Here's where it really gets under my skin. Malliotakis brings up the $710 million in royalties that NIH scientists collected from drug companies. That's our money, folks, taxpayer dollars funding research, and then the patents and royalties go to individuals, not back to the people who paid for it. Fauci claims he got nothing from COVID-related royalties. Okay, but he admits he gets about $120 a year from an old antibody he helped develop decades ago. So, where did the $710 million go? Who benefited? And why isn't there full disclosure to the American people about who's profiting from these government-backed deals? This is why people have lost faith in our institutions. We're told to trust the science, but when it comes to the money, follow the money, it ends up in the pockets of bureaucrats and career scientists, not the taxpayers footing the bill. Maybe it's time to revisit those patent and royalty laws, just like Malliotakis suggests. And as if that wasn't enough, we're also funding cruel animal experiments, millions, even billions of dollars, to torture beagle puppies, rabbits, and all kinds of animals in the name of science. Fauci says it's strictly regulated. Yeah, right. If you've seen those reports, you know it's anything but humane. Even the FDA is saying we don't need to test human drugs on animals anymore, because there are better alternatives. So why is the NIH still funding this? It's wasteful, it's cruel, and it's wrong. I'm glad Malliotakis brought this up because it's time to start asking tough questions about where our money is really going. Patriots, this is why we need to hold our so-called experts and unelected bureaucrats accountable. Transparency isn't optional. When you see this kind of stonewalling, secrecy, and money changing hands, you have to wonder, who do they really work for? I want to know what you think. Drop a comment below. Do you trust Fauci's answers? Should royalties from taxpayer-funded research go back to the people? Is it time to end cruel animal testing once and for all? If you like this breakdown, hit that like button, share this video, and make sure you're subscribed for more no-nonsense, America First commentary. Remember, we the people are the government's boss, not the other way around. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. See you next time, Patriots.